Heading into week 3, there are 9 undefeated teams through the first 2 games, but only San Francisco and Minnesota get to play each other here in week 3. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz, NFL.com's Pat Kirwan. Glad to be with you on the NFL Preview Show, presented by Tyson Anytizers. And Pat, a lot of people have talked about Minnesota. Yeah, we thought they'd be a good team, but look, they've played Cleveland and they've beaten Detroit. San Francisco, it still doesn't feel like this team is getting a lot of respect. What is this game going to tell us about these 2 teams?
Well, they are undefeated, so one of them's going to the to the loss column. Look, I'm impressed with Minnesota, and I know you can cite the opponents they have, but what I'm impressed most with is how they've harnessed Brett Favre, and he's willing to take sacks now instead of throw interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception, and he's been sacked a number of times, but when you study the tape, it's basically, I'm not turning this ball over. We have enough players here. If I don't make any mistakes, that is a formula for disaster for opponents.
Well, what about San Francisco, though? Nobody's talking about San Francisco as one of the best 2-0 teams.
They are, and I talked to Brad Childress about it, and I actually talked to Singletary, which we'll get to in a minute, but I asked Childress, he said, guys come in to play you, they're afraid to run the football. He said, well, we looked at San Francisco. There won't be one of those teams. We recognize teams have come here like the Patriots, no running game at all, no desire to run the ball. He said San Francisco is going to come in here and do what they do best. They're going to run the ball. Now, let's go back to that Arizona game. Arizona stopped the San Francisco running game. I think it was 20 carries for 30 yards. And the 49ers won the game anyway. That's what I think is going to happen here. This Minnesota run defense is going to stop Frank Gore. We're not going to see those big runs. Can they win another way?
Well, that's the next question then, because there are 2 phenomenal running backs in this football game. Adrian Peterson, who, oh, by the way, in 2007, his rookie year, had 3 yards on 14 carries against the 49ers. And Frank Gore, who, as you mentioned, in week 1, had 30 yards on 22 carries. Which running back has to have a better game for his team to win?
Well, I think they both need him to do something. But at the end of the day, if you shut both running backs down, I think Brett Favre has way more to offer than Sean Hill does as it relates to winning with the passing game. So if you talked about eliminating him, I think Frank Gore, there's a lot more pressure on Frank on the road to deliver for this to happen for the 49ers.
Coming off a 207-yard game last week on 16 carries, the 3rd 200-yard game in 49ers history. He has one of the other 2. All right, you get into this here, Pat. San Francisco's defense, though, has been so impressive through 2 weeks. Yeah, they knocked out Matt Hasselbeck, so they're taking on Seneca Wallace, but through 2 weeks, very impressive. Can't they shut down AP and Brett Favre?
Well, they can shut them down to a degree, but shutting AP down, I think by definition, we'd say 75 yards, that'd be shutting them down.
That's successful.
But Takeo Spikes, Patrick Willis, and the guidance of Mike Singletary. I talked to Mike Singletary about this. I said it must be exciting to coach 2 guys that have to stop this, maybe the best player in the NFL. And he said, we're spending all week talking about tackling. You cannot hit this guy in the chest. People drip off him. So we've got to plan to gang tackle him. Okay, what's the counter for Minnesota? Last week he caught 4 passes, that being Adrian Peterson. That ties the most he's ever caught in a game. They're starting to think, get him out in space, do things with him outside with screens and swing passes. I think we'll see a little bit more of that, and we'll see some chest to tail.
He's got a little bit of a back injury. Frank Gore's got a little bit of an injury, but both guys are saying they're going to go here on Sunday. Pat, it's Brett Favre's Vikings debut at the Metrodome. He's obviously played at Minnesota before, but this is the first time in a regular season game as a member of the Vikings. Do you like him to win that first game?
Yeah, I like the Vikings in 100 ways. I like that run defense. I like the Williams' ability to slow down or stop the running attack, and I like Brett Favre. They're going to do more and more. And every time I talk to Brad Childress, he talks about Percy Harvin, adding a few more pieces to the Percy Harvin formula. The more you commit to Adrian, the more reasons you go to Percy Harvin. I'd say they might even start this game with a deep ball to Bernard Berrian to serve notice. We're thinking about expanding that part of our game.
All right, we'll see if they serve that deep ball at 1 p.m. Eastern when the game kicks off. For more on this game, stay with CBSSports.com. That'll do it for the NFL Preview Show presented by Tyson Anytizers, the meaty good man snack. For Pat Kirwan, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care, folks.